Okay, this little video is mostly for the beginning or the new luthiers. One of the things that I do is that I sand everything up to 150 grit on this guitar. So I've got the neck sanded to 150 and the body sanded to 150. I'm gonna do a final neck set check. And the reason I'm doing that is you wanna get this dialed in at this point because you don't wanna have to do any major neck set changes or whatever after the finish is on, leveled and buffed out and all that stuff. So I'm gonna do it now. And the first thing that I do is I take a center line finder and I lay it on the fretboard. And I look to where it's coming down at the tail wedge. Now you can see that it's the center line of this is a little bit to the right, which means that I've got to change the set of the neck or the yaw of it a little bit this way to push it that way, which means I'll take off wood from this cheek here. So let me show you how I floss the neck correctly for that. Now the first thing I want to point out is that I've beveled or back beveled all this material out of this area here, leaving just a thin strip which contacts the guitar body here and here. If you do that before you do the final flossing, it will make the final flossing go a lot easier, because then what you don't have to do, you don't have to spend like 5 minutes sanding all this here instead of sanding just this little edge here. So let's go over and show you how I floss. Okay, so I've loosened the bolts inside a little bit so that I've got a little bit of play here. The best thing you can do is pick yourself up some of this neck set sandpaper from StewMac. I used to use sandpaper and all sorts of different stuff for a long time, and it would always tear or rip, or if it was too coarse. This stuff is perfect. It's 120 grit, and it's sold in a roll that will probably last you your entire lutherie life. I've got a little strip. Okay, so as I mentioned, I need to push the neck this way a little bit, so I'm going to remove material from this cheek here. Now when you do this, a lot of people don't tell you this, but when you floss, pull back and then pull down like that. See that? If you pull straight back, or worse, if you pull up, you'll remove material from here at the back of the heel cap, and that will look bad. The technical term for that is bad. Anyways, so I need to do this maybe about 5 times, and then I'll check it, or so on. So anyways, I'm holding down here, and I'm just pulling down. That's 3, 4, 5. I'll go a few more just for good measure. 6, 7. Okay, so let's go back to the center finder and check our fit. Okay, so I sanded it about 5 or 6 times as I showed you, went and checked it, and it didn't change. So I came back, sanded it about 10 times, and it still didn't change. So here was the problem. My tenon on the bottom of the neck was bottoming out in the mortise. So basically, it just wasn't seating correctly. And you know that typically when you go to floss and the paper just pulls right out, and it just keeps pulling out. Now, when I'm pulling it out, there's a lot of friction, and you see it kind of like go like that. What you want to do is you want to pull this until you get a nice smooth floss like this. Now let's go check it. Now, after removing a little bit of material from the bottom of the tenon and reflossing, you can see that I'm dead line right on the center of the tail wedge, which I know is the center line of the guitar. So all good. What I'll do now is I'll sand this up to 180, mask off for the bridge, and then she goes into finish. So that's the basics of setting up your neck geometry before you go into finish. And as I said earlier, if you do that now, you'll alleviate or basically minimize a lot of problems of doing that later when the finish is on and you've got a good gloss and everything on, and you might, do some damage to the finish. So do it now, don't do it later. I'll see you around the next time. This is Jeff signing off from Jewett Guitars in downtown Cleveland, Ohio.